This is Andrew for the Chosen Prime with a quick video preview of DX9 Gewalt, or their take on a Masterpiece Blitzwing. This is a production sample or test shot. As such, the only accessory that this sample came with is this sword that homages the one he had in the show and in the cartoon. He will also come with a purple gun that's this kind of purple chrome that he'll be able to hold. So just like other Masterpiece figures, the weapons have a slot that matches his slot in the hand. And this is his sword. Additionally, on his back here, this tank turret can be transformed to be a handgun. I'll show that off real quick. We slide out this part right here, slide this up, which will let us then slide down the handle, and this little canopy here will lift up as you fold the handle forward, and you can fold this back, and there's a gun, and you can hold it. So you will have, the ability for two guns, as well as the separate purple gun that eventually the retail version will come with. To show off that you can take this cannon and put it on his back to homage the way he looked in the cartoon. You can see this square peg on the back here that matches the slot here on his backpack, and that's how you can install that. So go ahead and we'll look at some closer details on Gewalt here. Taking a look here, you can see that DX9's Gewalt is very highly detailed. It looks very much like what you would expect a Masterpiece version of Blitzwing to look like. When I get to comparisons with other Masterpiece figures in a little bit, you'll see just how massive this figure is. And he's also quite heavy. There's a lot of weight in him. From what I can tell, there's parts of his waist here, the die-cast. It feels like there's parts of the tank turrets in his legs here as a die-cast. So there's a lot of heft to him, but he's still very solid even in this prototype form. His head here has got a simple swivel back and forth that can look back up and down just a little bit, but it's hindered due to a transformation joint that I will show off in a little bit. As far as his shoulders here, these panels here are on their own separate kind of floating hinge, and what that lets you do is take this arm and kind of pose it however you want, and then resituate this panel into kind of match however you paste the arm, so it's not stuck to the shoulder. These shoulders here are ratcheted. They can go out that far. They are ratcheted forward and back. He does have a bicep swivel. He can bend his elbow, double jointed. He's got his wrist is on a ball joint. He's got one set of fingers. The main set of fingers here is on a double hinge, kind of like a Msp Seeker. The index finger is on a double hinge, and then the thumb is on a swivel joint as well as a ball joint. It's a little loose on this example that we happen to have, but it's still a very emotive hand. He does have a torso ratchet to move back and forth. These little pieces of the jet nose cone, by default, they can be kind of put down as like hip skirts, and they are on ball joints that can move around. Or alternatively, you can go ahead and hide them up in his torso. It's an alternative option for you as far as posability. If you move his hip skirts, these universal hips here in the waist can go that far, but he's got a very strong knee bend, all ratcheted. With the feet here, the toes in the front are on a swivel, as well as his really heavy duty heel spur, so he can get some nice ankle articulation when you get to posing him. And just stylistically, I think he looks really great here in his robot modes, the purple and the tan overall, and the way that everything's kind of clean here. Like his backpack is fairly clean. With the tank turret can plug into his back. You can remove it if you so choose. If you want to kind of have a cleaner backpack, there's just a square peg here. But overall, he's just kind of a nice, beastly, and kind of large version of the triple changer Decepticon. With Gewalt here being a test shot, I unfortunately do not have instructions. His transformation is simpler than the other DX9 triple changer Seeker, but it is still unknown to me, so I will try to be as clean as possible with the transformation. And so I'll plan to go here from robot mode to tank mode, come back to robot mode, and then go to jet. So we'll go ahead and move on to that. We'll start by rotating his fists in. His fists are in kind of an interesting joint. So you go ahead and open up this bottom panel. And then you actually will come and you'll fold the fingers over into halfway into that panel to kind of grasp itself, and then roll the thumb up to the top like this. And then the entire kind of panel it'll be able to hide itself and hold that panel, and then go ahead and close that piece. Come to the other one and open it up. Even on this test shot, these joints on this figure are very, very strong. It's actually very difficult, and you have to kind of put a little effort into kind of opening some of these panels on this sample. So again, we take the hand, fold it on itself, take the thumb, and then just rotate it inwards and close the flap. Go ahead and come to the back and unpeg this turret for now. We can come to the wings, and you want to go ahead and extend them out, flip up this panel, flip out the tank tread for now. Do the same thing for the other side. Flip up the tank tread. Actually, the pegs in. In robot mode, this pegs into this panel here on the back. You want to go ahead and flip these panels inwards to free up the backpack. We'll come down to the legs here. He does have stiff ratchets here in his legs. You want to go ahead and straighten out the legs so they are pointing straight down. Come to the feet here at the bottom, lift up on them. They normally would peg in here. You want to make them so that they are kind of loose. Come to these jet intakes that are his heel spurs, and they're on a double hinge. This frontmost piece you kind of want to rotate halfway first, and then be able to collapse down onto the intake, the other intake. So you kind of, again, fold it halfway so that you can actually use the hinge, and then fold it up. Next, we come to these panels here, and they're actually pegged. There's these front parts of his legs here are pegged in pretty strongly into his legs. So you want to go ahead and unpeg them and straighten them out. Again, here's the peg hole and the peg that matches up. Go ahead and flip this over, and we'll go ahead and peg in his feet. Just like you just want to push them down to cover those holes like that. We'll come up to his upper torso up here, and you can see he's quite long in this mode, opened up. There actually is his torso here is actually pegged into his pelvis. It's very similar to the mechanism that's on the Masterpiece Seekers, but this one actually works and holds him in. So it takes quite a bit of effort to actually unpeg him from his torso here, and you need it extended for both tank mode and jet mode. So go ahead and we'll come to his backpack here, and there's a hinge here on the back of it. You want to go ahead and fold this back temporarily, and you want to make sure that these two panels here are kind of opened up enough to go around his midsection. Now we need to kind of focus on his arms. Come to the upper torso. These shoulder panels, go ahead and hinge them up so they're up and out of the way. These panels here on the chest, you want to kind of open them up enough so that you can go ahead and rotate up the nose cone pieces to be in the upper part of the torso. And these just kind of clip around the nose cone here, but it's a slight clip, so once you push them in, they'll just kind of they'll hook around. Now that these are upwards, we can come to the backpack again and make sure that we fold it down and secure it into place. Just make sure those inner panels are kind of outward enough to come around his legs. These panels here, and then they will kind of lock into place. Here at the arms, we want to lift these panels here, revealing these rotational hinges on the interior. And so go ahead and rotate out both of them. And what we want to do is get these on fully onto his back. But here you can get a better picture of this mechanism. And the way this mechanism works is you can see there's a square part there that hinges outward, which lets you then rotate the inner part around and then come back down. And you can go ahead and make a 90-degree angle at this piece here and come all the way up with the panel. Go ahead and make sure that the hand is rotated with the arms rotated with this piece outwards, and these two panels here on the top, the textured parts, are facing upwards, and that's how you want the arm for tank mode. come to the inside of this shoulder part right here. There's a little flap. You want to go ahead and pull it out and then close this down. And then take the front piece here, hinge it forward, kind of completing part of the front of the tank mode there. So we'll come to this arm, fully rotate this up. Make sure that we rotate that inner joint. Square it off so that the arm sits flush. Make sure that this panel is up top. Come to this panel here and flip out this from the shoulder. This panel is quite stiff, but then it'll let you go ahead and close that flush. Come to this hinge here in the front and push it forward. We can go ahead and these panels here that are purple can flip around to show front lights for the tank. You can also leave those out in robot mode if you prefer the silver pieces and the texture in robot mode. We come to the head, and the head's actually, by pulling on it, which is also quite stiff, you can see that there's an arm mechanism there that this kind of comes out on. And what we want to do is have it fold in on itself like that to kind of hide the head for vehicle mode. Come to the cockpit piece here, and it rotates forward enough that you can go ahead and then spin this blue piece and have it face forward. Come to his arms. There's a depression here on both arms. You want to go ahead and kind of press in enough to expose this panel that you can then rotate out, and it'll help fill in the top of the tank mode. And it can be a bit tricky to kind of get these out considering how kind of thin it is, but once you get a grasp of it, you can go ahead and rotate it out. Come to the back and rotate these wings down and rotate them up and fold them in this way. So rotate, fold them up this way. And essentially this is the top of the tank here in the back with several hinges back and forth. And so what you want to do is you want to fold this over to fill in the top of the tank. There are two pegs here on the top that match holes on the actual in the arms. So go ahead and peg those in and it'll lock the top into place securely. Come to the wings in the back here, fold these up, and there's a tab that matches a hole on the top of the tank, and peg that in. Then I'll hold the wings down. These panels back here just kind of fold in on themselves, just to kind of cover the back. Come to the tank treads, and they are pegged into each other, so you want to go ahead and unpeg it and fold it out on that hinge. This hinge will compress and to make one large tank tread, and then this is on its own kind of hinged piece, but there are tabs along the arm here that if once you kind of push up, and there's actually one here in the front to make sure it all locks into place, and that'll lock the tank tread in. And come to the other side. So unpeg, open it up, collapse, kind of hinge it into place. We're almost done. In the tank turret here, you want to go ahead and split, revealing some die cast as well as some pegs. If we take the tank turret, there's matching pegs and peg holes, so go ahead and kind of slot this into place. It can be a bit tricky to kind of get it to fit, but you will find that it will match up, and then just go ahead and sandwich the cannon into place. And there is, and finally, this cannon can extend here, and it can be kind of stiff, but go ahead and pull it out. And there's Gewalt in his tank mode, and we'll go look at some details. Taking a look at Gewalt here in his tank mode. It looks quite nice, looks what you would expect a Masterpiece Blitzwing to look like. He's got some nice detailing here up on top. His engines are called out with some silver paint, as well as his headlights here. His tank treads have some nice detail to them. He does have a bit of hollow pieces here in the back, as well as in the front with the canopy in the head, but from most angles you do not see it. He does have tiny little wheels here on his treads that can help him roll if you want to. His turret can rotate about that far, and it can pivot up and down about that far, so you do have a bit of options with how you want to pose the weapon. But I think overall this tank mode is a pretty great here from DX9. This is what I would hope a Masterpiece Blitzwing look like. I have them back here in robot mode and ready for jet mode transformation. First, make sure these squared off. Take off the tank turret. We're going to hide the hands again. So again, open up this panel. Make it so that the thumb is up top. Clasp the fingers around. Rotate the panel in. Fully. Collapse the panel. Come to the other one. Open up the panel. Go ahead and have it clasp. Fold it in fully and close it. Come to the backpack once more. Go ahead and straighten out the wings and flip up these air brakes. Untab the tank treads from these back panels. Open up these panels once more so that this is all ready to go. Come to the legs. Go ahead and square them off. Make sure that they peg them into together. For now, go ahead and lift up these panels, which shows off the landing gear. For now, we'll just lift them up temporarily. Take the feet and fold them over and lock them down. So unpeg, lift, and then rotate them into place. Come to the heel spurs. Go ahead and hinge and complete them as we did before. Again, pivot it halfway and then bring it up to match. And then they'll peg in. Come up to his chest and the canopy. Lift up on the canopy here and then pull this piece forward. It'll hinge forward and cover and move the canopy down here. Lift up his backpack so that it opens up, and there's a panel here that you'll slide open. You can then take and move these pieces out of the way, lift up these channels. You want to move the arms out of the way, lift up on the torso, unpegging it from his waist, and then take this entire canopy piece here, and his head will slide in where that hole was. These panels here that were in his chest, fold them in on themselves and then fold them. If you lift up enough, you can see the hinge here, you'll have clearance to push these in and they'll fold flat into the interior. Come to the nose cone here. The halves here will slide forward on these hinges and peg them together. Do the same thing for the actual tips of the nose. They have pegs. Once you move them forward, they will peg together, and there's the front of the jet. Fold the arms back into the center chest. Make sure that these shoulder pieces are slided out of the way for now. What we want to make sure that we can do here, we want all these screws visible on the outside. So rotate the arm around so it looks like this. Take this gray panel and flip it over and cover this hole. Fold the hand over itself so it looks like this. Then take the entire arm, rotate it down, and make sure that it's square into that position, and that is how you would fold the arm in on itself. So rotate so you see the screws on the outside. Take this little gray panel here, flip it up and over onto itself, covering that hole. Bend the elbow, then take and rotate on this square hinge here, rotate it in on itself so that the screws are all facing downward, and that is how the arms fit. Come to the underside of these shoulder pieces here and flip these little panels out once more, and they be a bit stiff. And then they will come down and they'll close, and these panels will fit, and that's how the arms kind of fit together. These pieces here, there's a tab that matches a slot on the nose, and you want to go ahead and plug that in. And these are very strong, so when you're taking it apart to go between modes, make sure you pay attention to that, how stiff these pegs are. You want to pull these out first. And there's essentially the top or the front of the jet ready to go. Come to the lower half or back half of the jet. Go ahead and rotate out these wings so they're out of the way for now. We'll go ahead and flip these panels down just so that we can get to these kind of crotch plate, and it comes out on a hinge. So you want to lift it up. And like we did for tank mode, you want to make sure that these inner panels here are open enough that you can go ahead and bring it over the center and collapse it down and hide the legs. Let's make sure that it all is pigs in. And then there's actually tab holes here that match tabs on the legs that'll help lock it fully into place. And we can take the crotch panel here, and then there's this joint peg here that'll lock. Once we sandwich this down, it'll lock that into place. We come to the wings. Actually, on the it's here, this gray peg next to the wing will actually peg, and from the tank tread will hold into the wing. And you want to do that on both sides. So again, it's this peg here will hold onto the wing. Come to his back tail fins here and rotate them forward and pitch them at an angle. Do that on both sides. And there is Gewalt in his massive jet mode. He does have landing gear. These two pieces here just fold out. And he's got one in the nose cone that you can also flip out. And you can pose really nice. And there is DX9's version of Masterpiece Blitzwing in his jet mode. And we'll look at some jet detail. Taking a look at some details here, you can see that he's got a nice blue canopy, and the overall top of the jet mode here is pretty clean. Everything locks in very securely. Even the tank treads kind of get hidden very well with these purple plastic here to make them look like intakes or jet engines. It's just a kind of a nice solid update of the Decepticon triple changer here in his jet mode. It's very solid, very heavy, very large. The underside is very clean. Unfortunately, he can't hide his weapons in this jet mode, but he can wield them if he wants to. There are two peg holes here on the under of each wing, and there's a similar peg on the sword, so you can peg the sword into one side. And then the cannon piece, it's got pegs as well, and you can have it peg into the other port, so he can at least wield his weapons here in jet mode. So we'll go on to some comparisons. Robot mode comparison between DX9's Gewalt and DX9's Chigger, or their take on Astrotrain. You can see that their Blitzwing is about a head taller than their first effort for our triple changer, but overall I think they look decent side by side. But Gewalt is definitely built a lot better than his counterpart. They've learned a lot as they've gone here. This is a much more solidly built figure. It tabs in a lot better. The overall design and kind of transformation is a lot more fun than some of the issues that some had with their version of Astrotrain. But as a pair of Decepticon triple changes here in the Masterpiece scale, I think they look really good side by side. But Gewalt really outshines his Patriot. Land vehicle comparisons for Chigger and Gewalt. Chigger in his train mode, Gewalt in his tank mode. You can see that Gewalt is much larger than Chigger, but they both look good side by side in these modes. I think they're pretty good updates of the Decepticon triple changer land modes. And so I'm pretty happy with the way these two turned out, specifically Gewalt. Gewalt looks really, really nice here in his tank mode in comparison. Flight mode comparison for Chigger and Gewalt. You can see that Gewalt is considerably larger in his jet mode than their version of Astrotrain in his shuttle mode. Also looks a lot cleaner. I think DX9 did a much better job here of making an updated MP-sized triple changer. But they still look good side by side. And I think you can really tell that they've done a much better improvement here with Gewalt. Comparison of Gewalt and Masterpiece Starscream, you can see that Gewalt towers over his fellow Seeker. They both turn into jets, but this triple changer is definitely kind of a hulking beast and kind of giant Decepticon next to a standard kind of Decepticon Seeker. But I still think it fits the character and kind of the scale to have this kind of monstrous triple changer kind of looming over the other Decepticons. Jet mode comparison with another Masterpiece Seeker. Here you can see what he looks like next to Masterpiece Starscream and how much larger he is than the jet from Starscream. It still looks like it to be in scale, but Blitzwing is definitely larger nose to tail by quite a bit here in his jet mode, but they both look like really nice jet modes side by side. You know, it's kind of nice to see that Blitzwing here is a larger character when compared to Starscream. Here's DX9 in robot mode next to MP10 Optimus Prime. You can see that Gewalt is about a head taller than Prime here, but they have the same eye line. But Gewalt is definitely built to be a bigger bot than Prime. He's beefier, and overall just looks a lot more menacing. But stylistically, I think that DX9 has kind of matched the Masterpiece size and scale and design aesthetic set forth by Takara Tomy. And so I think even though he's a little bit larger than Prime here, I think Gewalt would fit really well into Masterpiece collections, and it's nice to have this nice hulking Decepticon on a shelf. Comparing Optimus and Gewalt side by side in vehicle mode, you can see that Gewalt in his tank mode is bigger by quite a bit than Prime in his truck mode. But you would kind of assume that would be the case, you know, with the tank being larger than a truck. And I think stylistically, I think Gewalt matches kind of that Masterpiece aesthetic, specifically here in his tank mode. Some final thoughts here on DX9 Gewalt, or their take on a Masterpiece Blitzwing. They've really done an excellent job of making this Masterpiece version of the Decepticon Triple Changer, and he's far better in design and execution than their previous effort, Chigurh. This is just a nice, heavy, well-built figure. It's fun to transform. His jet and his tank modes look good. This robot mode has got a lot of personality to it. He's heavy. It overall feels like a very good and quality product. And so I think he would fit really well alongside other Masterpiece Decepticons as being this nice, larger, beefier addition to the roster. Gewalt here is currently up for the Chosen Prime. He should be out in the near future. If you like the way he looks with all these other Decepticons, I would highly recommend him, so take care.